Right, good morning, everyone. We're going to start. I'm sure more people will filter in as we start. Right, welcome to the British Skydiving Industry and Tandem Safety Day 2023 here in Nottingham. Right, thank you to our sponsors. More about the sponsors in just a moment. First of all, if there's a fire, we're not expecting any fire drills or anything like that today. So if we hear an alarm, it will be for real. What we're going to do, exit in a orderly fashion out the door, follow the exit signs, and we'll be saved. Right, mobile phones, please keep them silenced if you would, unless you're a fireman or something like that. But if you can keep them silenced, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. Filming and photography warning. Right, please be advised that filming and or photography will be taking place in this room. If you do not wish to appear in any of the images captured, please sit at the back of the conference room just over there. The photographs of film will be used by British Skydiving for uploading our Skydive The Mag or YouTube channel for the benefit of those members who are unable to attend. These recordings and photographs will be held by British Skydiving and its contracted partners. They may also be included in the British Skydiving publications or promotional material, and may also be published on our website and social media platforms. So if you don't want to be on film, head over there. You can still watch the presentation from there. Cool. So thank you to our sponsors. Romero Sports and Leisure, they're the British Skydivers insurers, as well as UPT, United Parachute Technologies. I'm Brian Mancy. I know most of you in the room anyway. So I'm a British Skydiving examiner. I'm also a tandem instructor. I've done somewhere between 8,000 and 9,000 tandems over the years. Got just over 12,000 jumps now as well. Been in the sport for 26 years now. We've also got Noah Watts, although he's not with us presently. He will be in a little while. So Noah's the UPT Tandem Program Director, so he's an absolute wealth of knowledge. He's coming in a little bit later to give us a couple of different presentations. Any questions before we start, just on the outline of the day or anything like that? No worries, cool. Right, so we've been running this for quite a few years now, and every year we go, well, we need to have further training in the sport for the experienced skydivers, because the courses are pretty good now. You know, they've been developed over the years. They've been getting better and better. So our newbie tandem instructors get a good wealth of knowledge before they start. But once guys have got some experience, it's just assumed that they all kind of learn off of each other and try to stay up to date with current affairs and what's happening in the sport. But there hasn't been a course as such that people can go on to learn the latest techniques or recap things, other than, you know, every month doing your suspended harness drills. So I've put together a tandem canopy progression, which we're going to be introducing shortly. We're still working out the logistics of getting it to the different drop zones and getting people on it and the financial side of it. But I've been asked to give an overview so you all get an idea of what it's about. So the aim is to guide the experienced tandem instructor into better awareness and practices so that they can achieve better results consistently across a broad range of conditions and equipment. Now, we're going to be looking at an overview of the course, but also we're going to be looking at some things that happen, incidents, that side of it. On the actual course, we'll be looking at what not to do and how things can go wrong, but that's just the first part. It's important you know what not to do and what can happen. You also understand the weight of what you're doing. It kind of reinforces that. But it's more important once you've understood that we focus entirely on how to get it right. Okay, so the syllabus consists of this. Exits, the 4 rules of proper drogue deployment, freefall, under canopy, landing and after landings, various exercises, which I'm going to talk about and describe a little bit later, bit of recap on flight theory, flight cycles or pendulum effect, which actually likely will be new to some of you, Challenging conditions, or jumping in challenging conditions. A bit on hand cam. And preparation for dealing with problems during emergencies. So that last one. Yes, we practice our drills every month. But, well, years ago, I'm an AFF instructor as well. I was teaching a guy AFF he's a cave diver. Very, very experienced scuba diver. And he was asking questions about, incidents and things like that. And he was saying in cave diving and in most adventure sports, the fatal accidents or real negative stuff usually happens not as the result of an incident. It's of the result of something going wrong during the emergency procedure, whatever it is. We've got procedures for everything to get us out of trouble, and the kit's as good as it ever has been. But if something then goes wrong further, so we're going to be looking at some things along that line, and some drills and stuff that you can practice to hopefully prepare yourself for such things. Okay, exits. This is just a recap of a few bits and pieces. We do our checks. We do our 11-point check. We do our 4-point check. 4 in the door, just to make sure everything is as it should be before we leave the aircraft. Position in the door. We're going to get our students in the best possible position. Regarding fear and confidence, if we've done those things, that reduces the amount of fear. There's nothing worse. I've been filming tandems before, and quite often you get to see the competence of the instructor. You're kind of in the door, you're looking in their eyes, and I know when someone they're committed, they take a deep breath, they're ready to go. I have absolute faith in that, but occasionally I'm dealing with an instructor and you can see they are absolutely borderline overwhelmed. All right, so if they're borderline overwhelmed at that point, when everything's going right, it really doesn't take too much to push them over the edge. So building confidence is massively, massively important. You do tend to get this with the newer instructors, but I'm talking about guys who've been in the sport for years. Maybe they had a bad exit, something like that, and it's freaked them out. So, it's just when you do your checks in the door and when you get your student in the right position and we're not rushing or anything, that leads to good confidence. So don't rush anything. Regarding the relative wind presentation and using momentum to get out the door, what do I mean by that? What are we looking to present when we're in the door and about to leave? Anyone? No? All right then. No worries. Well, people think about moving into the door, the exit, right? And we present our chest to the relative wind. We kind of learned that on day 1 of our AFF, and we've learnt it, when you're doing tandems, you're starting out. But it's more important. I'm going to show you a video in a little bit where a guy does exactly that, but his student isn't into the relative wind. All right? When you exit the aircraft, it's essential to put your student into that relative wind. It doesn't matter what position they're in. If you just get big and they're into the wind, you have control. Fly the exit, build speed. Why are we building speed? This is something a lot of very experienced tandem instructors get in a habit of, just getting out and chucking the drogue immediately. A lot of it comes out of fear because they don't want to leave it too long just in case they go unstable, and it's like, grab the moment now, chuck it. But when you get in a habit of that, that's not good. Why do we need to have speed before we throw the drogue? Can anyone tell me? Yep. So, yeah, exactly that. So, sorry. What? Hold it up here. Oh, I've got you. Yeah. No worries. I'm just going to get this microphone ready anyway. Cool. Sorry, we will be passing around the mic at times. Yeah, when you fly the exit, you're a nice stable platform to put that drogue out. All right, so there's less chance you're going to get entangled with the bridle or anything like that. The reason we're building speed, a good 3 to 5 seconds before throwing that drogue, when you throw that drogue, you chuck it out hard to the side. It then ideally the bridle pays out from within, goes to full extension of that bridle, then it inflates. And having that extra speed is what's going to help that process along. If you chuck it straight out the door, there's more chance that the bridle can come out of the drogue, cause a loop around the drogue. It's unlikely, and we've been getting away with it for years, and every now and again we don't get away with it. And, you end up with a drogue that doesn't work because it's got a length of bridle wrapped around it. Right, let's have a look at a couple of videos. So, have a look at the student position in the door. He actually left with his chest to the relative wind, but his student wasn't. He managed to fly his way out of it and through the drogue. All good. We're going to watch a slow-mo version of this in just a moment as well. The other thing I want you to have a look at, check out what he does to his students' goggles when he's in the door. So he's pretty much just pulled them right into his eyes, so he can't see very well now. Out they go. Now, see where the students' knees are? They were like that in the door. Does anybody here do a standing exit? Yep, there's a few of us down at Dunkeswell. All the staff there do standing exits as well. When you move them to the door, it's quite common that their knees are out like this. You've got to take the time to kind of lift them up, get those knees back. Don't rush it. Right? Because if they are there for the exit, they're probably going to stay there. Right, one thing I want you to notice is when he left the aircraft, all right, the cameraman's actually, he's pivoted around as if he's kind of doing a head-down exit. So what's happening there, that instructor is almost chest to the relative wind, but his student isn't. This is the problem. Every exit we do, unless you're jumping out a Skyvan or a tailgate exit, is that we are naturally in the door side to the relative wind, which opens us up to all sorts of problems. If a leg or an arm gets stuck out, we're going straight on our backs. So we've got to present before we leave the aircraft, but the bottom line is, when we leave that plane, we are side to the relative wind. We have to use a certain amount of momentum to swing us around into a position where we position our student into that relative wind so that we have the control. So what happens next? He goes for the drogue. Now the great thing is, he doesn't just chuck it. He brings his hand back out again and goes, no, I need to correct this. I need to fly this. If you look, he's trying to wrap the student's legs there. He's trying to mold him into a position. That isn't really working so well, so he goes back to a big position and flies that exit. Even though he's kind of spinning around upside down. Then he gets it right and throws the drogue. So whilst it wasn't the best exit, was it? It didn't work very well at all, but he actually corrected those errors once he was out in the airflow, rather than just panicking and throwing the drogue, which potentially goes around your leg or your student's leg. So I think he actually did quite a good job there once he was out. Okay, this is a prime example of obviously being completely side to the relative wind. So out we go. See all the momentum? That momentum is keeping them turning round. Because they're not in a bad position, but unfortunately now we're in a side spin situation. Oh yeah. Out comes the reserve. All good. Anyone here ever been in a side spin? What was it like? Hardcore. Cool. What does it feel like, the G-force? Because I've never been in one.
It really picks up fast, and then you've really got to...
Can I keep this one back here? If people want to speak, they can use that one.
Yeah, it really, when it goes, it suddenly goes. It's not like a slow build-up, or what happened to me. And then it really spins, and you start losing your, you know, the revolutions start getting higher and higher, and you can feel the blood going to your head and your feet. And the only way out of it is you've really got to arch, get their arms down, because we used to do that on as a tandem instructor, examiner for them. Get your legs and go into a hardcore arch, but into a dive, and get them out that way. You can get out, but you've got to be quick. And this was the days when we didn't have AADs.
Yep.
So we were having a lot of fatalities with side spin. So.
Okay, so what do you think about the G-force? How did that film regarding bringing your arms up for emergency handles or anything like that? I mean, I'm guessing you managed to fly your way out of that, yeah?
Flew it out.
Okay. How long would you leave it for if you were trying to fly it out and you couldn't?
Probably a couple of more seconds. I mean, you'll know because you can feel yourself. It just gets like, you know, right. I don't know if you've been on a motorbike on the wheel of death when you go around and it takes the floor, you know, and it gets really fast. Well, it's the momentum that keeps you up. And what happens is it really pulls you. And what you've got to do, a lot of people try and do this.
Yep.
And later on when you come on to techniques, there's another one I use. And what you've got to bring your arms down this way. And then that, because if you try and do it that, you can't do it because you're out like that. You're in one position and you're spinning round. You cannot physically bring your hands in. You've got to bring them down into this way and then get their arms, pull them back that way, and then get your legs round. It takes a lot of strength.
It's interesting you to say that because I've heard of people in the past say about if you go to a track position, you can actually manage to track your way out of them.
You can. That's what you're doing. But to do that, you've got to get there because if you try and go in a track yourself, you can't do it. You've got to get their arms back. And I did some of the jumps with Bill Morrissey in the early days and Ted Strong when we were testing this. Yep. And another guy called Ron Young, who's dead now. He had 14,000. So we did a lot of this stuff in the early days. And a couple of us, stupidly, you know, volunteered to try and put ourselves in side spins. You can do it to yourself on a solo jump. Put yourself in a side spin, let yourself go, and then try and get out of it.
I've seen the videos of Ted Strong and Bill Booth doing this years ago on purpose.
Yeah,
to learn more about it. It looks scary, I must say. Yeah, so important thing with a side spin, if you are in a side spin and you can't track out of it, is the bottom line is it's only going to be so long before you're probably going to red out or black out or whatever. So you need to react pretty quickly. If it isn't going back stable, then do something. People say it may be advantageous to throw the drogue, especially if you're drogue side up, of course. Or as we've seen numerous of these where people just punch the reserve out, and that works as well. So, but don't hang around. It isn't going to right itself. You've got to react and do something. That's the point. Okay, thank you. Right, the 4 rules of proper drogue deployment. First of all, we follow the manufacturer's guidelines to packing the drogue properly in the first place. The idea is that the bridle pays out from within the drogue if this is done properly. So when that drogue hits the airflow, it doesn't just open up and then bridle can come out and tie in a knot around it. Build speed for 3 to 5 seconds before throwing it. We've already discussed that. A positive throw to full arm extension. This was a mistake I made when I started doing tandems years ago. I'd exit the aircraft and I'd throw the drogue and then I'd feel this fluttering on my shoulder. I'm like, what the hell is the drogue? And I'd try to just move like that and it'd come flying off. And this happened a few times in a row. I couldn't work out what it was. And one of the camera guys who was like filming me go afterwards, who was still in the aircraft basically, he said, yeah, that's happened a couple of times. He says, it's not a pilot chute, it's a drogue. Right? Don't throw it like a pilot chute, throw it as hard as you can out to the side. Full arm extension. I never had it again after that. And check the drogue. Why are we checking the drogue? Anyone? I know it sounds pretty obvious.
Make sure it's there. Make sure it's working.
Make sure it's there. Make sure it's working. When is it not obvious that it's working? Because usually you can kind of feel it, can't you? But when is it not obvious? When you've got a very light passenger. All right, you throw the Drogue, you don't feel that sudden inflation behind you. You got a heavier passenger and you're going faster through the air, or you've left it a little longer. You throw it, you feel that force as it actually deploys. But it is essential that you do a visual check of the Drogue. We're going to watch a couple of videos regarding this. Okay, out comes the Drogue, and obviously he didn't check it. I'd like to point out as well, this is a very experienced tandem instructor. He's obviously got some skills, but he's fallen into a bad habit. So he's got quite a reasonably light passenger. He hasn't noticed that the Drogue is uninflated. If you look at the bridle flapping around, you'll kind of see it. There you go. Goes for the pull. Now he's established that nothing's happening, so he punches the reserve out. So now both the main and the reserve are out. Fortunately, they're not really entangled as such, but they're not flying very well either. So he's now busy trying to cut the main away and keep them separated. Job done. Scary days. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to move back a little bit on that video. So from throwing the Drogue there, obviously there's no check. It's going to show you behind so you can see it. Hang on. There you go. So you can see that the Drogue's quite clearly uninflated there. If he'd done a visual check, he definitely would have seen it. What's the drill if you have an uninflated Drogue in tow? Can anyone tell me? Yeah, big arch, because now that's, I'm suggesting a Drogue is a stabilizer, but it kind of works as one, doesn't it? So you definitely want a nice big arch, keep flying in a good position, as if you're doing a Drogueless tandem. All right, and what's next? Wait 6 to 8 seconds, and then what? And then expect a slow opening, which is exactly what he got when he pulled that Drogue release, didn't he? Only he wasn't expected it, so he just punched the reserve out. So, yeah, if he had done that, he would have had the height to have that slow opening. It wouldn't have been a bother, all right? So checking that Drogue is absolutely life-savingly essential. Speaking of which, can we have the camera off for this one, please? Any questions before we move on? No worries. Right, we'll be covering stuff on Freefall. Oh, Noah, just so you're aware, the intention of this at the moment is we put together this program, like a 2-day course that we're going to be delivering. I'm just giving an overview of the course, basically. All right, but we're looking at a few videos of stuff going wrong as well. So Freefall, systems check. Why do we have a systems check? As you can see, it would be better to find out things sooner than later so we have time to react to them. Something as simple as a floating reserve handle is a minor drama, really, isn't it? You can just put it back in position if you have time. If you don't even bother doing a system check and you don't notice that, and it starts flapping around in freefall, eventually it's putting pressure on the pin and out comes the reserve, and it's, that's why we do a systems check, just to make sure all our systems are ready for use when we get to deployment height. Fly your body. I often, when we got new tandem instructors and I'm examining on courses, I often tell them, you're flying in the student's burble, all right? So get big, extend out past them. Just being in like a if you're doing FS or something like that and you've got everything in your arms and legs and you're just doing little turns, that works if you're flying on your own, but you're not on your own anymore. You've got someone on the front and you are flying directly in their burble. So the same ways that you turn and arch and things like that, it's different now. So for stability, get big, extend out past. Controlling your student, keep flying. right? If they go trying to do the shoelace up or something, or just do something weird in freefall, yes, control them. You can wrap their legs, you can grab their head, move them, but don't get just fixated on that. If it's not working, get big, keep flying. How do you turn? I know this sounds really basic. I'm in a room full of very experienced tandem instructors and I'm asking them, how do you turn with a tandem? But seriously, how do you turn? Anyone? How about yourself? Knees? Cool. Legs. You do mostly sort of formation skydiving, your free fly or anything like that? FS. So uses his legs. Anyone else use arms, hands, anything?
Both.
Both? Excellent. Anyone else? Anything different?
Depends on your student.
Yeah, depends on the student, absolutely. So, a few years back, I was chatting to someone about this. How do they turn? Because someone was saying, oh, I just use my hands, and some people use arms. I mean, as long as you're creating, you fire air at that surface, it stays there, doesn't it? You fire it at that propeller effect. So you can use various things, obviously. But this guy said to me, pelvis turns. I'm like, what the hell is a pelvis turn? And at this point, I had about 6,000 tandems. I've never even considered turning a tandem round with my pelvis. And I went out and I tried it. I was like, oh my God, that's really, really powerful. And I don't know if it was because when I did that, I'm kind of dropping a knee and that was having an effect, but it was a different way of looking at it. So try doing it with your pelvis. And then the more I thought about it, think about where the laterals are attached to your student. When you do that, you're actually using the student on the front of you to actually induce a turn. So it can be a really useful thing. Yeah, most of the time it's really not a drama, is it? But every now and again you got that tandem where it's actually really difficult to control. So these are all just tools in your in your tool belt that you can pull out when you need them. Watch their hands keep flying through the deployment. When we pull that drogue release and we go through that trapdoor, no longer are we nice and stable from the drogue. I mean, we should be flying anyway, but at that point, people pull the drogue release and then just relax and start looking for the canopy. But if you have some sort of malfunction, like a bag lock or something like that, and you pull that drogue release, you're going to go unstable pretty quick if that's your usual procedure. All right, when you pull that drogue release, get big, really fly it. Keep your shoulders level to the horizon, and then as you swing under, that's the best way you can get that canopy opening as nice as you possibly can. Really scan the canopy when you check it. I've been guilty of this myself. We open the canopy with a quick look. It feels right. Yeah, look, it's there. And that's it. Right, scan the canopy, look for it, look for any light that might be shining through it where light isn't supposed to shine through it. I've got a story about that in just a moment. And once you've done that, have a look at your risers, have a look at the free ring, your handles are in position. Basically, we're checking our system again, everything. It'd be nice to find out if there's a problem at this point as opposed when you're lower to the ground. Years ago, I was at a drop zone, and a friend of mine, another tandem instructor, he pulled the drogue release. He had quite a brisk opening. It was pretty hard and uncomfortable. And he was like, looked up, checked it. Okay, no worries. Carried on. When he gets to 1,200 feet, he looks up again and realizes that there's quite a lot of light shining through the canopy where it shouldn't be. And he's like, 1,200 feet, I'm too low to cut away or anything like that. And he's really, really peaking at this point. But he stays in control. And bear in mind, he'd been flying the canopy round. It didn't seem any different. He came into land. The canopy actually landed pretty good. When we checked the canopy out afterwards, we hung it up. It was ripped from front to back. It was unbelievable, the damage that had occurred on it. And it's only because they're made as well as they are that it actually flew. So my point is, when you check in that canopy, actually look at it, scan it, look for damage and light that, make sure it's as it should be. Right, moving on. Why are we looking for their hands, especially on deployment? So I pull that drogue release, I look up, and then I'm looking down. And then I'm looking up again. I'm checking where their hands are. How many times do they reach back and grab what they're hanging from? Because it feels safe to do that. They do it on a fairground ride, wouldn't they? And yeah, your student will do that to you. And if they reach around and grab your handle, I've known people to pull that one before. Years ago, I was filming a tandem and filmed the opening. It was all good. I came into land. I looked up. He's on his reserve. I'm like, what the hell happened there? His student pulled his reserve handle under Canopy. And then he cut away and got it all sorted. But it really does happen. Has anyone been in the situation where a student's got hold of a handle or something like that? Yep. Noah's had it. I've had it a bunch of times. But you just grab hold of their hand, make sure they don't panic, and ask them nicely if they could remove their hand. Something along those lines. Okay, under Canopy. As soon as we open, immediately turn 90 degrees from the run-in. Why do we do that? Yeah, look up the run-in and look for other canopies as they're opening. If it's one of those days where we got an inter-wind run-in, the winds are particularly high upstairs, you go out and a couple of 5 seconds later, the next tandem goes out. You guys can be very, very close to each other in the air, and over the years, we've had some pretty close calls with things like that. If you open, immediately turn 90 degrees from the run-in and then sort all your stuff out, then, you're giving yourself a much better chance, less chance of collision, that sort of thing. Right, once you've seen other canopies, head straight to the holding area. En route to the holding area, then sort and lengthen your students' laterals and reconnect. Why are we reconnecting? Does everyone here reconnect? Good. I've known a few people who actually don't. All right. I must admit, my first 3,000 tandems, I didn't, and the only reason I didn't was because the guys that were teaching me, it's the old school thing. They used to it was always said that the top hooks are the load-bearing hooks. The bottom ones just keep you in a nice position in freefall. So they used to just let them off and just let them hang. But the problem is, if you're pulling a steering toggle down, you can actually get them caught on that bottom hook, which has happened.
Whoever told you that then, from the old days, are telling you wrong.
Yeah.
Because we did that from day one. Loosen them off and then hook them back up for
Yep.
that very reason.
The other thing is if you're in a situation where you have a canopy collision and maybe you need to cut away. Now the bottom ones aren't connected anymore. That could be a massive drama. You end up with a free bag in between you or something like that. On landing, if you have a bad landing, all right, if you're joined together at the bottom, all right, it might not be very comfortable, but if you're not and you get thrown over the top, now we're looking at neck and head injuries of the two as they go over. It just doesn't make sense to, you just spend that extra second just clipping it back on. It's done. All right. So get your student comfortable. Practice your landings up high. Don't start practicing them down low. If someone's having trouble regarding getting their legs up, that sort of thing for landing, you've given yourself some height to be able to deal with that. Do all your stuff early, so then you can have some fun with the canopy and with the student when you get down lower. Once in the holding area, then we'll do the exercises. Now, like I say, this is just an overview of the course. We're going to talk about the exercises in a bit. But basically, we'll be doing some stalling exercises as well as various other things. No stalls under 3,500 feet. We finish the exercises by 2.5, and we form the stack by 1,500. We create space in the stack vertically, because it's pointless doing it horizontally, isn't it? We're all going for the same landing area. Fly proactively and communicate. So when you're flying around, I'm sure you've done it sometimes, you're flying in deep brakes because you want that other guy to get on down there. Give him a kick of the legs. Put your arms out like this. That's saying, look, I'm on brakes. Maybe your student feels ill, something like that. You're letting him know, I'm going to hold on brakes, you get on down there, and vice versa as well. Landings, we're not going to go into landings now. Noah's going to give us a lecture in a little while regarding landings. But basically, you're going to start your downwind pattern at 1,000 feet, as you usually would. Land with a level wing into a clear area, flare symmetrically, and ideally, we're going to land nicely into the wind. After landings, control your wing using your brakes, risers, walk towards or turn the wing on its side. Control your student. Don't let them go wandering off. I'll show you a nice video. It's not a very nice video, but a video that demonstrates the reasons why. Look out and anticipate things, all right? Make sure you're looking up, see what's coming in to land. Okay, reasons why that happened. 2 camera guys stood together. Those tandem instructors were focused on landing in a straight line towards their camera guys. All right, the top one, for whatever reason, didn't see the bottom one. He's just focused on, I'm going to keep going over that way so you can get a nice video. They're not scanning, looking all around. All right. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it is entirely the tandem instructor's responsibility there. But as camera guys, you can help each other out, or brief the camera guys. Don't all stand together. All right, give us some room. So you use the PLA. You don't all have to land in exactly the same square meter, do you? I know it looks impressive, but give yourself some room. Right, this one's quite a shocking video. But again, it's not really looking where you're going under canopy and doing a big hook turn for landing. This is a student canopy, by the way. No one here hooks it like that anymore, do they? No, I'm glad. No. They weren't actually injured, by the way, but that's just that thing where we're ding-donging the canopy down. Every time we do that, we're losing height, and we get carried away with it, and then there's no flare at the bottom of it. Bang! And that's how a lot of people have been broken like that, but they actually got away with that. Very hard landing. So that's basically not using an effective flare. All right, that's just leaving it way too late and then barely flaring down at all. All right, so Noah's going to talk to you about effective flaring and things of that nature in a little while. So remember what I said about keeping an eye on your student?
Heads up!
So yeah, he was knocked unconscious. Anticipate these things happening. When you're there, you're sorting your kit out. Don't take your eye off the student. You can do your brakes, still have a good look around. Oh, just move over here a minute, will you? Let him come in, that sort of thing, all right? Just be aware this stuff is going on in the world. Don't let it go on over here. Right, the exercises we're going to be doing on the course over the period of a couple of days, and it'll be kind of 5 or 6 jumps. If people want to do more, we can do more. But we'll look at flight cycle awareness, more about that in a minute. Learning the sweet spot, part of effective flaring, so getting the most out of the airspeed that you have, basically, so you get a nice smooth landing. Learning the full range of modern tandem canopies and using flat turns. So being able to fly as slowly as you possibly can for various reasons. Obviously, one, if you're up in heavy traffic and you want to stay up, usually people bring their brakes to here and think that that's as slow as they're going, and then they bitch and moan at each other when they come into land and they're all together. All right, you can go a lot further than that. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. Using the primaries, you can bring them down and hold on to the student laterals. And you can turn the canopy, little flat turns like this, which lose very little height. The other one is with the secondaries as well as the primaries. You can bring them down, put them underneath the student's shoulder straps. All right, and you can hold it quite comfortably there as well. If you try just holding on, I guarantee you won't be able to do that very long. This stuff is really useful if you need to slow the canopy down very quickly due to traffic, and it also works nicely if you're coming back from a very long spot. So yeah, learning the full range of the canopy. The trouble is, when we're using the full range of the canopy, we are so much more closer, the slower end anyway, we're so much closer to the stall point. It's important that we experiment up high in a controlled environment, what a full stall is, the correct recovery from that, and also playing with the incipient stage as well. So getting the canopy to just about there, feeling it go, and an immediate action just to stop it before it carries on. So once you practice this a bunch of times in a controlled environment, it becomes second nature. It's muscle memory. If this happens to you lower to the ground, it's not a big deal anymore. You will react, but you've got to practice it, which is what these exercises are about. Turn and pitch recovery. Building speed with braked toggle surges as opposed to turning like your traditional sort of hook turn to build speed. Modern canopies, they don't need extra speed to land anyway, but they do need full speed. All right, so that's all part of the effective flaring thing. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, you just mentioned a minute ago, sorry, Brian, about taking your hands down with your toggles and putting them under your student harness.
Yep.
Does that not put you in danger of anywhere near your own cutaway and reserve angle?
Yep, that's something you've got to watch out for. As long as you're aware of it, you bring them down here. That's a very good point. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those. It's how to get the full range out of the canopy, and it's a neat place to hold on. But I've not had an issue regarding the cutaway or anything like that.
I'm talking about, I'm not being offensive, but like newbie tandem instructors, would that be a good idea to teach them something like that?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't stuff we're teaching on the initial course. This is for experienced tandem instructors. And we're not teaching full stalls on the initial course either, you know what I mean? This is once people have got some experience. But yeah, that's a very good point. When you are bringing this down, obviously your brake lines are very, very close to your handles. So just something to bear in mind and watch. But I've not experienced anyone have any issues with this. But good point, thank you. Where were we? Oh, and force recovery as well. So we'll be looking at how to build speed using a nice gentle surge that canopy, build the speed, and how to force recovery if ever you've misjudged it and you've done it slightly too low. So we practice it up high, controlled environment, so we never need to use it, but if we do need it, it's there. Different landing patterns. Light wind, strong wind, drifting patterns in stronger winds, as well as constant aspect landings. When you go on the course, we'll talk more about that. We don't really have much time to go into all that stuff right now, but just to let you know what it's about. We'll go into a little bit more on flight theory. Most of you have covered this sort of stuff in the past anyway, but just kind of a recap on it. The axis of flight, or the axis of flight, should I say. So, obviously, you've got pitch, you've got roll, and you've got yaw. So we'll be covering that and really looking at when you actually turn using a brake. Obviously, the canopy rolls. The secondary effect of roll is yaw. So it rolls. Secondary effect happens, which means the canopy is pitched. Things like that. We'll just be looking at the a bit more back to the the flight theory of things as well. Flight cycles. So this is just a paragraph that I wrote regarding flight cycles. Does anyone know what I'm talking about before I start? No? Okay, no worries. All right, well, what are they? Pendulum effect of the pilot under the wing, transferred to the wing via the lines. They're the physical effect of the wing returning to a balanced state. Most noticeable are the flight cycles that happen around the pitch axis. However, they may also happen in roll, which affects the yaw, which can turn your canopy without you realizing what's happening. The flight cycle exercises are designed for you to develop an awareness of them and their effects both visually and kinesthetically. In other words, you feel them happening after a while. Once a pilot has developed this awareness, this can be used to vastly improve landings and keep control of their wing in active air, ensuring a smoother ride, giving the pilot more confidence in dealing with turbulence. So imagine if you go to you put some brakes on and then you let up and you get that surge going. If you just don't touch the brakes anymore, the canopy starts doing this. And most of us don't even realize that that's happening. And it carries on doing it for, well, with tandem canopies, and I'll show you, it's usually about 12 seconds. With sport canopies, it's between 8 to 10 seconds. This can have a massive effect on your landings. All right? So yeah, be aware of them. Any input causes flight cycles, including turbulence. The bigger the input, the bigger the cycle. And how to use them, active flying in turbulence. Challenging conditions. So we will be talking about that. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go up in these wonderful conditions. Well, we are in the UK after all. What do you consider challenging conditions? You know, what are your limits, your personal limits? They might be different to the limits of the drop zone and of the British Skydiving Ops Manual. We say no more than 20 knots, all right? And it might be 18 knots, but you're not comfortable with that, and that's absolutely fine. But there is a way to stand down when conditions are too much for you. Don't feel peer pressured that you have to jump in those conditions. And it's how to say, no, this isn't for me, respectively, so that other people who wish to continue in those flying, then that's fine, they can crack on, but you should never feel peer pressured to continue, especially the newer guys as well. I think we look after them pretty well now. Years ago, they were just thrown in at the deep end, but now we've got the probationary period where they do 20 jumps. They're not allowed to jump in anything more than 15 knots for that first 20. It is kind of breaking them into this a lot easier than what we used to do. How to get better at flying in more challenging conditions as well, gaining experience. We'll be looking at that and talking with the experienced guys, just different techniques and things like that. We will cover a little bit on hand cam. I appreciate not everyone does hand cam, so I'll keep this brief. But basically, it is a massive point of distraction, and people start changing where they put their outie. They start changing how they do a systems check and things like that. All right, so we'll look at that as well for the people who are doing hand cam. Preparation for dealing with problems during emergencies. We'll cover that, and we'll give you some interesting little exercises to do on the ground using the actual equipment. Things like clearing the risers. Who here has actually cleared their risers before? Because when we practice this in a suspended harness, people they cut away and then they do this, clear risers, but no one's actually done it. So what I'm suggesting is you get the actual equipment, you can pull the cutaway out, and then you can practice it sitting in a chair and going through it in your mind, and then you release these riser covers, you grab behind them, and you throw them out, and then carry on the rest of the drill. Likewise, once you've done that a bunch of times, you can practice it lying down. It's the most realistic way I've found of actually doing this, and it surprises me that no one is really doing this until they actually need it. There's been numerous times where people have had bag locks now. Some very experienced tandem instructors that I personally know who had a bag lock. They knew damn well they need to clear their line. They cut away, they checked to see if those risers have cleared, and they pulled this handle anyway. All right, and they hadn't. So it is essential. We're getting more and more closer to a main and reserve entanglement if we do not clear those risers. So we've got a few different exercises to practice that sort of thing as well. Like I said about my friend who said with cave diving and that, if an emergency happens, no worries, you've got a procedure. But if an emergency happens or something is different during that procedure, that's when a fatal accident usually happens. All right, so it's protecting yourself from that sort of thing. That's it. That's pretty much the course. All right, I've kind of blasted through it. Just to give you a sample of what our intention is. We're going to let you know as soon as it's ready for action. We're hoping, the start of the season, we're going to start contacting some drop zones and try and put this course on. Don't know about the financial side of it at the moment. We'll let you know. Hopefully we can get it funded or part funded or even fully funded. I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. Any questions?
What's the qualification you need to deliver that training?
To what, sorry?
Deliver that training.
To deliver the training?
Yeah, for that course, as in the progression.
Well, currently it's only me. Examiner, really.
You get an examiner who's a tandem examiner.
Yep.
RWS current.
Good point.
That's to be like George does 1 million tandems a year, but he's not an examiner.
Yeah, no, this stuff does need to be an examiner due to the nature of what it is that we're actually teaching. Yeah. Any other questions? No worries. Time is... Oh.
Saying though, if it is an examiner, that examiner's got to be current.
Yeah,
I mean, really current.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
That's the same on every course, whether they're examining AFF or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a prerequisite for being...
That's exactly what I'll be pushing for as well. Yeah.
So what you're saying then is a ground instructor, a ground examiner cannot examine.
You go into specifics here. There's
No, but
3
no,
different types of courses,
It's
aren't there?
true.
Everything is taken on individual basis, surely.
Yeah. Currently, I mean, I've come up with this course, and I'm looking for any feedback once we've done the course. I'm sure it won't stay exactly the same. We'll tweak some things. Some things will be really useful. Other things we might take out altogether. Some we might add stuff to it. It's something that's going to mould and manipulate into something that's ultimately very, very useful is the plan. But yeah, at the minute it's only myself that will be giving this course, but long term wise I can't be everywhere, can I? So I'll be looking at training up some people to actually deliver the course as well. And yeah, they need to be current examiners, really, people who are doing a lot of it. George?
On that last point there, hook and knife placement.
Yeah.
Just a question. How many of you guys have tried getting that hook knife out the back of a student harness?
Can someone give George the microphone if that's all right? Thank you.
How many of you guys have tried getting out a hook knife out of the back of a student harness?
I see some people raising
And
their
being
hands and
successful
smiling.
with that, because I see a lot of drop zones. You've got your hook knife in, stuck in the back of that hook knife is a SIG bag. There is no way you are getting that hook knife out of that student harness. Try again on your next jump, and just to put yourself into a spiral, and then try and get the hook knife out. You will struggle.
Agreed.
You will struggle. So it's just test. So for me personally, I would have a hook knife on my leg.
Yep.
Just for that reason. But on your next tandem, just bear that in mind, that if you're going to need a hook knife, that you can actually get that hook knife out. I just thought.
Yeah.
Seeing
Thank
that
you.
I saw that hook knife thing.
Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. We're going to stop for a quick cup of coffee, and then we need to crack on, really. So next up will be cultural alignment with doctoring by Mr. Noah Watts. Thank you.